The rain poured hard that evening. Max sat alone at table 7 in a quiet roadside diner just outside the city. His hoodie was soaked from walking in the storm, but inside, it was warm. The smell of hot oil and fried potatoes filled the air. He dipped a fry into ketchup and stared out the foggy window. Everything felt ordinary until the bell above the door rang. A girl walked in, or at least Max thought she was a girl. She wore a long torn cloak dripping with water, her bare feet made soft wet sounds on the floor. The waitress behind the counter looked up and frowned. "We don't serve runaways," she said without moving. But the girl didn't reply. She just looked around the room, then locked eyes with Max. Her eyes were strange, large, too large for a human face. They shimmered faintly like tiny moons. Her skin had a soft blue glow, so light it could be mistaken for pale skin under neon lights. But Max saw it, even if no one else did. She wasn't. From here, she stepped toward him slowly, each step unsure, like she was testing the floor. Without saying a word, she stopped beside his table and stared at his fries. Max blinked, confused. "You hungry?" he asked, holding out a fry. She didn't answer, just sniffed it then, carefully. She took it from his fingers and placed it in her mouth. Her lips trembled as she chewed. The way she had tit was like she hadn't eaten in days. Maybe weeks. Max offered her the tray. She took 2 more fries quickly, but then stopped. She looked at him again, like asking for permission. He nodded with a gentle smile. The other customers were now staring, whispering to each other. The waitress came closer with a scowl. "Hey, girl. You can't just walk in and steal food," she snapped. The girl lowered her head and let out a soft sound, not quite a growl, not quite a whimper. Then, when the waitress took one more step, she bared her teeth and growled, low and deep. It wasn't normal. It wasn't human. It sent a chill down Max's spine. The sound was wild. Like a starving animal warning others to stay back, the waitress stopped, startled. "Fine, keep your fries." She mumbled and walked away. Max leaned forward slowly. "Are you okay?" he asked in a quiet voice. The girl looked at him, eyes still glowing slightly. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but no words came out, just a whisper of breath. Like wind through broken glass, she sat across from him, still silent. She didn't touch the napkin, didn't wipe her hands, just sat, hands on her lap, watching the door like she expected someone to burst in. Max finished his fries slowly, giving her most of them. He wanted to ask who she was, where she came from, what happened to her. But something in her posture said not yet. Not safe. The storm outside grew louder, thunder shaking the windows. The diner's lights flickered once. No one else dared approach their table. It was like a line had been drawn around her, a line. She wouldn't let anyone cross, except him, as the last fry disappeared into her mouth. She looked up again, this time. Her face softened. She didn't smile, but her eyes blinked slowly, like a quiet thanks. Max stood up and grabbed his coat. "Come on," he said, unsure why the words left his mouth. "I got an old shed out back. It's warm. No cameras. No noise." The girl hesitated, looked at the window, then back at him. She rose slowly. Her wet cloak dripping on the floor. The growl had stopped, but her silence remained. They walked out together into the rain. Max didn't notice the man in black sitting in the corner booth. Didn't notice the small blinking device under the girl's cloak. Didn't hear the quiet message being sent to the sky above. All he saw was a cold, silent girl who needed shelter. All he felt was that strange pull-like fate had just joined them. Somewhere, far above the clouds, a ship changed course, heading straight for table 7. Max didn't say much as he walked through the wet alley behind the diner. The streetlights flickered above him, painting yellow lines on the puddled ground. His boots splashed quietly, coat pulled tight around his chest. But something else echoed behind him, soft, bare footsteps. He turned his head slightly. There she was, the strange girl from the diner, still silent, still watching, but now walking behind him. Her wet cloak clung to her frame, and her arms were wrapped tightly around herself. She said nothing, just followed like a shadow. Max stopped under the rusted gate behind the apartment lot. "You're still following me," he said, unsure if it was a question or a fact. She didn't reply, only looked up at him through wet silver strands of hair. Her glowing eyes seemed softer now, not threatening, just lost. "Okay," he sighed, unlocking the gate with a creak. "Come on." They walked through a small backyard cluttered with old junk. Tools and broken furniture. At the back stood a wooden shed, half rotten but dry inside. Max pushed open the door and flicked on the small battery light. It buzzed to life, revealing an old couch, some crates, and a dusty blanket. Max said quietly, placing the blanket on the couch, "No one comes back here." She stepped inside without a word, dripping wet, her eyes scanning the room like an animal checking for danger. Max noticed again how thin she looked. He pulled off his hoodie and handed it to her. "You'll freeze," he said. She took it with slow, careful hands, then sat on the couch and curled up like a wounded creature. Max turned to leave. "Duh." But before his hand reached the door, she spoke one word, barely a breath. "No." He looked back, surprised. "What?" She hugged the hoodie tighter and stared at him. "No cages," she whispered. Max frowned. "This isn't a cage," he said, but she just lowered her head and mumbled. "Everything with walls is a cage." He didn't know what to say to that. So he just nodded and said, "I'll come back in the morning." As he stepped out into the cold night, she suddenly stood. He turned and saw her at the doorway. "Name?" she said. He paused. "My name?" "It's Max." She blinked slowly. "Max," she repeated, like the word was new and heavy in her mouth. Then she sat back down, and the door creaked shut behind her. That night Max couldn't sleep. Rain tapped against his window like fingers. He kept thinking about her, the glowing eyes, the growl, the strange word cages. He stared at the ceiling for hours. Something about her wasn't just alien, something was broken inside her. The next morning, the sky was clear but cold. Max brought a small tray of food and a mug of warm soup to the shed. He knocked softly. "Hey, I brought breakfast." There was no answer. He opened the door slowly. She was gone. Panic rose in his chest. The blanket was folded neatly on the couch, the hoodie placed beside it, but then he heard something above. On the rafters, he looked up. She was there, crouched like a cat on the wooden beams. Watching him, her fingers clutched the ceiling like claws. Eyes glowing, she dropped to the floor without a sound. Landing in front of him like wind, Max took a step back. Heart pounding, she didn't move, just looked at the tray, and then at his face. "Why feed me again?" she asked. He swallowed. "Hard. Because you're hungry, others feed, then take," she said flatly. Max shook his head. "I don't want anything," she narrowed her eyes. "You want no bond?" "What bond?" he asked. But she didn't answer, only picked up the tray and sat cross-legged on the floor as she ate quietly. Max stepped back out, confused but calm. But from the alley nearby, a pair of red eyes blinked behind a trash bin. Watching, scanning, recording, someone or something was tracking her, and they had just found her again. Max noticed it while pouring hot water into a cracked mug. Steam rose in the shed. Mixing with the cold morning air, she sat by the wall, quiet arms wrapped around her knees. The hoodie he gave her hung loose on her shoulders, revealing her neck. There it was, half covered by her long white silver hair. A dark ring, just above the collarbone. It wasn't a necklace. It looked fused to her skin. "What's that on your neck?" Max asked carefully. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached up and gently touched it, her fingers trembling. "They made us wear it," she said softly. Her voice was like frost on glass. Max sat across from her. "Who?" "Buyers," she whispered. "Trainers, makers, owners." She lifted her hair slowly, revealing more of the collar. It was smooth and black. Not metal knot, plastic something else. Alien. Max leaned in and saw a small blinking light screen, red, then blue. "Is it a tracker?" he asked. She nodded once. "But it sleeps," she said, "when I'm not." "Wild." Max sat back, trying to understand. She was being tracked, watched, possibly even controlled. He didn't know what kind of alien tech this was, but he could feel it pulsing like it had a heartbeat of its own. "Can we take it off?" he asked. She shook her head. Only the ones who made it have the codes. Then we need to break it, Max said. She looked at him, her eyes shining in the dim light. You would risk that? I gave you fries, Max said, with a small smile. You growled for me. She didn't smile, but her eyes softened. Later that day, Max brought in some old tools from his garage. He sat with her in silence, examining the collar with a flashlight. As he touched the edges, she winced. The collar reacted, tiny shocks sparked at his fingertips. She growled low in pain, but didn't stop him. Sorry, Max said quickly. I can't cut it without hurting you. She blinked slowly. Then don't cut. Max looked up. What then? Hide it, she said. He blinked, confused. Hide what? The girl they marked, she replied. She stood, pulled the hoodie back over the collar, and stepped outside into the cold. Her eyes scanned the sky, her nose sniffed the air like a wild thing. Hunters come, she whispered. How? Do you know? Max asked. Stepping beside her, she pointed to the crows overhead, circling, screeching, then flying away. Crows always flee before ships come, she said. Max felt a chill go through his spine. This wasn't just fear talking. This was instinct. Come back inside, he said, but she didn't move. She stared at the clouds and whispered, They will burn this place to find me. Max grabbed her hand. Then we'll run, he said. No, she growled softly. They chase. Those who run, what do we do then? She looked at him, slowly lifted her hand, and placed it on his chest. Stay still, she said. Hide the fire inside. Before Max could ask what that meant, she turned around, crouched down, and dug into the dirt floor. She uncovered something shiny, a small, blue crystal with wires tangled around it. Tracker inside me sleeps because of this, she said. If they find it, they wake me again. Max stared at the crystal. White, too removed it from your body? She nodded. I cut it out the night after fries. Max wanted to ask more, but he heard a soft hum in the sky. His heart raced. He looked up through the cracks in the roof. There's above the clouds something was moving, low and silent, but too smooth to be a plane. She grabbed the crystal and shoved it into Max's hands. Take it, she said. What? Why? They follow signal, not me, she said. Her voice was calm, but her hands shook. If they catch you, they think you're the prey. I'm not leaving you here alone, Max said firmly. She looked at him with wide, surprised eyes. No one has ever said that before. Yeah, well, Max said, I'm not like the ones you've met. She moved close, her face inches from his, her voice barely a breath. You gave food, you asked name, you touched collar. She pressed her forehead gently against his. I growl for you now, and outside the shadows of alien hunters began to descend. Asterisk, the first light didn't come from the sun. It came from the sky blue. Flickering and silent, Max stood outside the shed, holding the alien crystal tightly in his hand. The girl stood beside him, tense, her ears twitching, like she could hear something no one else could. The sky above them was still dark, but the air had changed, colder, heavier, like something massive was pushing against the clouds. Then they saw it, a shape, black and sharp, gliding just beneath the storm layer. No wings, no noise, but it moved. Like it owned the sky. The girl crouched low and pulled Max into the shadows. They found me, she whispered. Her voice was calm, but her glowing eyes were full of fear. Max peeked around the wooden wall. More ships followed, smaller ones spreading. Out over the city? What do they want? He asked quietly. She didn't blink. They don't want me back. They want me erased. Suddenly, a beam of white light struck the street across from Max's house. In the blink of an eye, 5 dark figures appeared. Their armor was like obsidian, smooth and alive, no faces, no Eisenly helmets with glowing red slits. Each one held a long metal rod crackling with energy. The girl growled low, her body stiff. They are trackers. They smell the code, she said. Max clenched his jaw and looked at the crystal in his palm. It's this, he said. They're tracking this thing. He took a deep breath and turned to her. I'll lead them away. Her eyes widened, and she stepped in front of him. No, she snapped. They'll rip you apart. I'm not letting them take you, Max said, voice shaking but steady. I'm not leaving you alone again. She looked at him for a long moment, then touched the side of her neck. With a flick of her nail, she pressed something deep under her skin. Her collar glowed, then dimmed. "Now I glow no more," she said. "But they still see you," before Max could move. A noise hit them like a punch, a high-pitched pulse that shook the walls and knocked birds from the sky. He covered his ears and fell to one knee, the crystal rolling out of his hand. The girl screamed, clutching her head as the collar sparked. With violent light, her body convulsed, her voice raw and broken. The shed's windows shattered, and the roof groaned. The hunters were moving in fast. One of them pointed its staff toward the building. Another raised a device's scanner, blinking. "Faster now," Max crawled toward the girl, grabbed her hand. "We need to run," he shouted. She couldn't speak, just shook her head and pointed at the corner of the shed. Behind an old shelf, a trap door, hidden beneath a crate, he kicked the crate aside and pulled open the hatch. Darkness below, but no other choice. He lifted her trembling body and carried her down the wooden steps. The door slammed shut above them, just as the wall behind them exploded. Down in the cellar, it was cold and wet. The only light came from the girl's fading skin glow. She curled up in the corner, panting, her body still twitching. Max knelt beside her, wiping blood from her nose. "I'm here," he whispered. Her eyes fluttered open. "You smell like fries," she whispered weakly. Max laughed under his breath, tears forming in his eyes. "That's because I dropped them on my shirt." Outside, the ground trembled. The hunters were searching, tearing the place apart, but their sensors followed. The signal in Max had dropped the crystal just outside the door. A new rumble shook the earth. The girl looked up sharply. "Not just trackers," she said, voice cracking. "What now?" Max asked. "Alpha is coming," she whispered, "the one who made me." Max's stomach twisted. "You mean like a leader?" She nodded slowly. "Alpha burns planets just to test fear." Silence filled the cellar. Then she took Max's hand and pressed it to the side of her face. "If I change," she said slowly, "if I become the thing they train, stop me." He looked into her glowing eyes and said, "You're not that thing anymore. You growl for me," he added with a small smile. She blinked once, then closed her eyes. "I'll growl louder," she said, "for you." Above them, the sky opened wider, and something far worse than hunters touched Earth's edge. The ground was quiet now. No more pulses from the sky. No more screeches of machines. Only the sound of slow breathing in the dark. Max sat on the cellar floor, his back against cold stone, the girl resting beside him. Her skin still flickered faintly, but her glow was dim, like a dying ember. Hours passed before she spoke again, and when she did, her voice was no longer soft. It was tired. "Old, you want to know what I am?" she whispered. Max turned to her, nodding slowly. "You don't have to tell me," he said. "I do," she replied. "Before I forget myself." She sat up, crossed her legs, and looked at the wall, like it was a screen only she could see. "My kind wasn't. Born we were made," she said, "spliced from many things, shaped to obey, trained to fight." Max stayed silent. The way she spoke now was like reciting an old memory. "Not a story, but a wound. They call us Valari," she continued. "Built in tanks, raised in chains, fed by voices, shocked into silence." Her fingers rubbed the scar on her neck where the collar sat like a shadow. "We were sold to leaders, warlords, kings like pets that could kill." Max felt sick in his chest. He had guessed she came from pain, but not like this. He clenched his fists. "You were a slave," she nodded slowly. "They called us playblades, half pleasure, half death when we disobeyed. They triggered the rage inside us." She touched her temple. "They built fire into our minds, trained our hands to remember death. And when one of us broke free, they hunted her." "You," Max whispered. "I didn't want to kill," she said, her voice shaking. "But when I tasted salt," Max blinked. "Salt. Your fries," she said, almost smiling. It tasted like a choice he didn't understand at first, but then it hit him. Her life had been commands, programs, punishments. A single act of kindness, a free, had broken the pattern. "You bonded with me?" he asked. She nodded, "Yes, but not like the way they trained us to. This bond I chose." A long silence passed between them. Then she whispered, That's why I growl. It's not just protection, it's instinct. It's code rewritten by kindness. Max swallowed hard. I didn't mean to change your life with junk food. She looked at him, her glowing eyes soft. Then never stop feeding it, she said. He chuckled. Feeding what? The choice? Up above? The air changed again. She froze, eyes wide. He is close, she whispered. Who? The one who forged my mind, she said. The alpha who gave us our first words. He speaks in fire. Max grabbed the pipe he kept near the wall. Let him come, he said. She smiled faintly. You are small, weak, soft, but braver than armies. She reached behind her back and pulled something out, an object wrapped in cloth. When she opened it, Max gasped. It was a blade knot made of steel butt of some dark crystal, shaped like a curved fang, glowing from within. This was mine before I ran, she said. The alpha will recognize it. Max reached toward it. It's beautiful, he said. She paused, then gently placed it in his hands. If I fall, she whispered, use it to end me before he controls me again. Max stared at the blade. In horror, no, he said. I won't kill you. She stepped closer, her forehead nearly touching his. Then stay close, she whispered, and remind me I am free. Suddenly the earth above them groaned. Dust rained down from the ceiling, a deep hum, heavier than the rest. Shook the floor. The girl's face went cold. Serious. He's here. Max tightened his grip on the crystal blade. I won't let him take you. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time, a single tear slid down her cheek. You're not just a human, she said. You're my first real choice. And then the cellar doors exploded above them. Shadows fell through the smoke. A voice like molten metal called out her name. Asterisk, the smoke hadn't cleared when the first drone came through the broken cellar door. It hovered in the air like a floating spider, silent, black and deadly. Max shielded his eyes from its strobe light. The girl stepped in front of him, bare feet planted firmly on the stone floor. Her glowing eyes narrowed. That is not Alpha, she said. It is his net. The drone clicked once, then split open, revealing spinning coils of light in a blink. It fired a burst of energy that struck the wall behind them, not to harm, but to scan, to trap, the girl muttered, pulling. Max behind a support beam. They are searching for my blood. Max gripped the crystal blade tightly. What do we do? We run, she answered, but not away, toward the scream. Before Max could ask what that meant, she darted forward, fast, almost invisible. Leaped through the light and grabbed the drone with both hands. With one twist, she crushed it, then threw the sparking remains into the shadows above. Another light appeared overhead, this time brighter. More drones. Came 3-5. Then 10 spreading through the ruins like wasps. They are trying to force me out, she whispered, crouched beside Max. They want me to rage, because rage wakes the caller. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed down from the broken ceiling. It wasn't a machine. It was a voice, low, crackling, too deep for any human throat. But it spoke words Max could understand. Return to your purpose, Subject 13. You have failed your escape test. Max's heart froze. The voice was calm, but full of power. It wasn't angry. It didn't need to be. It was used to control. The girl stood up slowly. I remember that voice, she whispered. He was the first thing I heard when I opened my eyes in the lab. Max reached for her arm. Don't have to go back. She looked at him, her eyes flickering like dying fire. That's what they want me to forget. A loud hum pulsed through the ground. Then the walls around them lit up with red beams, lines drawn on the stone. Glowing and rising like invisible walls, the girl's eyes widened. It's a containment field. She gasped. They're building a cage. Max looked around. They were being boxed in by invisible fences. The red lines moved closer with each second, like a trap tightening around prey. I can't break it, she said, panicked. The field feeds on Ray GIF. I get angry. It grows stronger. Max thought fast. He grabbed the crystal blade, stared at the lines, then turned to her. Then don't fight with anger, he said. Fight with something they never programmed into you. Her breathing slowed. She closed her eyes and whispered one word. Kindness. The blade in Max's hand began to glow brighter. She touched the back of his hand gently. Your bond rewrote me, she said. Now let me return the code. She stepped toward the red line with calm steps. The drones hovered closer, buzzing like angry insects from the sky above. The voice returned, Subject 13, this is your final instruction. Submit or be deconstructed, she raised. Her hand opened not in violence, but in peace. Then she spoke not with fear, but with a clear, strong voice. I am not Subject 13. I am what I choose to be. And in that moment, her skin flashed a blinding blue. The red field cracked, then shattered like glass. The drones convulsed midair and dropped like dead birds. The trap had been broken, not by fury, but by identity. Max ran to her side, catching her before she fell. Her legs were shaking, her breathing weak. That took all my control, she whispered, but I didn't turn into the weapon. You kept me human. He helped her sit on the broken steps. Now what? He asked. We fight smarter, she said. Alpha is here now, not just watching. He will come down himself. Max looked up through the broken roof. Darkness swirled in the sky, something big descending. The girl stood again, slower. This time, her hand touched her collar, no longer glowing, no longer in charge. We trap him now, she said. We taught me to obey. Now I'll teach him what it means to lose control. And as the final ship cast its shadow over the ruins, Max realized something terrifying. She wasn't just protecting him anymore. She was preparing for war. The wind howled across the broken field. Ash floated from the sky like snow. The last ship had landed tall and silent, its metal blacker than space. Its shape was sharp, cruel, and alive. At the base, a wide ramp opened, hissing steam-like. Breath from a beast, Max stood with the girl in front of him. She no longer trembled. She no longer whispered. She stood tall, bare feet pressed against scorched ground. Face calm like still water. From the ship came the Alpha. He walked like gravity obeyed him. His armor was smooth and silver, not cold but hot like sun-forged steel. Behind his mask glowed red lights that never blinked. The earth seemed to shrink under his steps. Every breath Max took felt heavier. Even the air didn't want to defy the thing walking toward them. The girl didn't flinch. She took one step forward, her hand behind her back, holding nothing. But still she stood like a queen before a forgotten king. I made you, the Alpha, said, voice deep as thunder. I gave you the gift of rage. You betrayed your line. She tilted her head slightly. You made a weapon, she said softly, but you never gave it a heart. Max did. Max felt a lump in his throat. The Alpha turned his gaze to him. A human, he spat, a soft, smelly creature with no command codes. The girl smiled for the first time. Exactly, she said. He offered no commands. Only fries. The Alpha raised a hand, and energy crackled across his palm. I will rip the bond from your mind, he said, and reforge you in fire. But she didn't move. She stepped between Max and the Alpha. No, she said. I growl for him. I fight for me, with a burst of speed. The Alpha lunged forward, but the girl was faster. She moved like wind, dodging his strike. Landing behind him in a blink, she struck with her bare hand, not at the armor, but at the joint. Behind his neck, his knees buckled, and he growled in frustration. Max shouted from behind. Go for the mask. She nodded and leapt again, but this time the Alpha was ready. He caught her by the throat midair, lifted her off the ground. Her feet kicked at nothing. But she didn't scream. She looked at Max, her eyes glowing softly. I'm not afraid, she mouthed. Max couldn't watch her suffer. He ran forward. With the crystal blade in hand, with a wild cry, stabbed the blade into the Alpha's side, where the armor looked thinner. A blast of blue light exploded outwards. The Alpha dropped the girl with a roar. The blade burned in Max's hand like lightning, but he held on, twisting it deep for the girl who never had a choice. Max said. The Alpha stumbled back, sparks flying from his side. The girl caught herself mid-fall and kicked him in the chest. He crashed backward into the ground, the mask cracking with a hiss. Max dropped the blade, his arm trembling from the energy shock. The girl knelt beside him, checking his pulse. He nodded weakly. I'm fine, he said. Did we win? She looked toward the Alpha, who was now crawling back toward his ship. She stood, walked to him slowly, and placed her bare foot on his hand. "I will not kill you," she said. "That would make me yours again." He looked up at her, his mask cracked, one eye red and bleeding. "Then what will you do?" She stepped back and said, "I will leave you behind, the same way you left my soul." Later, the skies were quiet. The Alpha ship lifted off without her, disappearing into the stars. The war was over, not with fire but with choice. She sat on Max's porch, legs swinging off the edge. She wore his hoodie again, and in her hand a new bag of hot fries. Max brought her a soda, so he said, "You still growl when people come near me?" She looked at him, a fry hanging from her mouth. "I only growl for what's mine," she said, chewing, then smiled. "You gave me food, freedom, and a place to stand. You are mine now." Max laughed softly. "I guess I am." She looked at the stars, her eyes no longer glowing in fear. Now they glowed in peace. "I never had a home," she said, "but if fries grow here, maybe this is one." And as night fell, she leaned her head on his shoulder, not as a weapon, not as a slave, not even as an alien, but as someone who had finally found something worth growling for, someone worth guarding forever.